Sana never imagined that her life would change so drastically. Just weeks ago, she was living a simple life, her days filled with ordinary struggles and dreams that seemed far out of reach. But now she stands on the brink of something unimaginable. Marrying Khalid, an Arab millionaire whose wealth and influence stretch far beyond anything she has ever known. There is only one thing that makes this union even more unusual. Khalid is blind. The world around her is moving fast. Lavish wedding preparations are underway, extravagant arrangements are being made, and whispers follow her wherever she goes. Some envy her, calling her lucky. Others question her motives, wondering if she is marrying for love or for the life of luxury that comes with being Khalid's wife. But deep down, Sana herself is unsure. How did she end up here? Was this truly fate, or was she walking into something far more complicated than she could ever imagine? As the wedding day draws closer, an unsettling feeling grows within her. There is something about this marriage that doesn't feel right, something hidden beneath the surface, something no one is talking about, and yet she pushes her doubts aside. After all, what could possibly go wrong? But what Sana doesn't know is that the biggest shock of her life is waiting for her on her wedding night, a truth so unexpected that it will change everything forever. Sana had always dreamed of a beautiful wedding. As a little girl, she had imagined herself in a dazzling white gown, walking down an aisle filled with flowers, her heart pounding with excitement, her future filled with hope. But nothing in her dreams had ever looked like this. This was not just a wedding. It was a spectacle, a breathtaking display of wealth and extravagance beyond her wildest imagination. The palace-like venue stood under the golden glow of 100 chandeliers, their light reflecting off the marble floors, making everything shimmer like a dream. Exotic flowers, imported from faraway lands, filled the air with their delicate fragrance. Gold-trimmed drapes cascaded from the ceilings, and intricate Arabic calligraphy adorned the walls, whispering stories of love, fate, and eternity. Sana stood at the entrance, draped in an opulent wedding gown that cost more than she had ever earned in her entire life. The fabric was embroidered with gold threads, each stitch telling a story of tradition, legacy, and power. The veil over her face was sheer, allowing her to see the world beyond it, but somehow she felt trapped, as if the weight of this marriage was pressing down on her more than the heavy jewelry around her neck. As she took slow, deliberate steps forward, the whispers around her grew louder. Some voices were admiring, some envious, and others skeptical. "She's so lucky," a woman murmured to her companion. "Imagine marrying a man with that kind of wealth. She will never have to lift a finger again in her life." "Lucky?" another voice scoffed. "She's nothing but a gold digger. Do you think she would have married him if he wasn't a millionaire?" Sana heard every word. The judgment, the doubt, the accusations. They all reached her ears, making her stomach twist. Was this what people truly thought? Did they really believe she had come this far only for wealth? She had told herself 1,000 times that she was doing the right thing, that this marriage was a new beginning. But as she walked past rows of guests, all eyes fixed on her, she couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that something was off. Was it the way some of Khalid's family members looked at her, their expressions unreadable? Or was it the fact that, despite the grandeur surrounding her, she had never felt more alone? Khalid was waiting at the altar, dressed in a traditional white thobe with a gold-trimmed bish draped over his broad shoulders. He was seated, his face unreadable, his eyes hidden behind the veil of blindness that had defined his life. Despite not being able to see, his presence commanded attention. He was a man of power, a man who had built an empire with nothing but his mind and ambition. Sana hesitated for a brief moment before she stepped towards him. He couldn't see her nervousness, couldn't witness the uncertainty in her eyes. Or could he? "You look beautiful." Khalid's voice was calm, steady, unreadable. His words were meant to reassure her, but they only added to the unease swirling inside her chest. "Thank you," she replied softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Did he truly believe in this marriage? Or was she just another addition to his life, a woman chosen for reasons she did not yet understand? The ceremony was conducted with the utmost tradition and formality. An elder from Khalid's family recited the sacred vows, words of commitment and duty that tied them together in ways more than just the legal bond of marriage. Sana's heart pounded as she repeated the words, her voice steady but her soul uncertain. Do you, Sana, accept Khalid as your lawfully wedded husband, to stand by his side in times of joy and sorrow, in health and in hardship, till fate decides otherwise? Her lips parted, and for a split second, she thought of running, of turning away and choosing a different life. But the eyes of hundreds of guests bore down on her, waiting, expecting. And so she spoke the words that would seal her fate. I do. Khalid's turn came, and without hesitation he repeated the vows, his voice unwavering, his expression impossible to read. And just like that, they were married. A woman with unanswered questions, a man with untold secrets, and a union that neither of them fully understood. The moment the ceremony ended, the palace erupted into celebration. Musicians played traditional Arabic melodies, their rhythms filling the grand hall with life and energy. Dancers in flowing silk performed gracefully, their movements an ode to culture and tradition. Silver trays overflowing with exotic delicacies were carried from one table to another, each dish a masterpiece of flavor and richness. Guests raised crystal glasses in Khalid's honor, congratulating him on his wedding, speaking words of respect and admiration. But not everyone was celebrating. Hidden among the crowd were faces that held secrets, eyes that watched too closely, lips that whispered too quietly. There were those who did not approve of this marriage, those who believed that a woman like Sana did not belong in a world like Khalid's. Amidst the chaos of celebration, Sana found a brief moment of solitude. She stepped onto the grand balcony, the cool night air brushing against her skin. The city lights stretched out before her, a breathtaking view of the world she was now a part of. But instead of feeling victorious, she felt trapped. She barely knew the man she had married. She had no idea what kind of life awaited her. And worst of all, she couldn't shake the feeling that this wedding, this marriage, was not what it seemed. Behind her, footsteps approached. She turned to see Khalid standing in the doorway, his expression unreadable as always. He did not need to see her to know she was there. He simply knew. You're quiet, he observed, his voice calm yet commanding. There's a lot to take in, she admitted. Khalid stepped closer, his presence both intimidating and intriguing. I know people have doubts about this marriage, he said. I know they question your reasons for being here. Sana looked up at him, startled by his bluntness. And what about you? She asked. Do you question my reasons? There was a pause, brief but heavy, and then Khalid simply smiled, a smile that held no answers, only mystery. I suppose we will find out soon enough, he murmured. The wedding was over. The guests had celebrated. The vows had been exchanged. But the real story was only just beginning, because what awaited them on their wedding night was something no one could have expected, a truth so shocking that it would change everything. And for Sana, the biggest question remained, who exactly had she married? Sana stood at the grand entrance of the honeymoon suite, her heart pounding as she reached for the golden door handle. The celebration outside had finally died down, the music fading into the distance, the laughter of guests nothing but an echo in the vast halls of the estate. Now it was just her and Khalid, alone. The door creaked open, revealing a suite more opulent than she could have ever imagined. The walls were adorned with intricate golden carvings, the chandeliers sparkled like clusters of fallen stars, and the scent of rare Arabian oud filled the air. A king-sized bed, draped in the finest silk, stood in the center of the room. The very place where, in just a few moments, her life could change forever. Khalid was already inside, seated on an antique chair near the window. His posture was relaxed, his hands resting on the carved wooden arms of the chair. His dark eyes, though unseeing, seemed to pierce right through her. He wasn't looking at her, yet somehow it felt as though he saw everything. Come in, he said, his voice calm yet unreadable. Close the door. Sana hesitated for a moment before obeying. The heavy door shut behind her, sealing her fate. There was no turning back now. You must be tired, Khalid said, his voice carrying a strange sense of amusement. A little, Sana admitted. In truth, she was exhausted, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. The weight of the entire day, the whispers of the guests, the uncertainty of this marriage, it was all crashing down on her now. Khalid remained silent for a long moment before he finally spoke again, and when he did, his words sent a chill down her spine. Before we go any further, there is something I need to tell you. Sana's breath hitched. Her fingers instinctively curled into the soft fabric of her gown. There was something about his tone, calm, measured, yet carrying an unspoken gravity, that made her uneasy. "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Khalid leaned forward slightly. "I know you have questions about me," he said. "About this marriage. About why I chose you." Sana's heart pounded. Yes, 1,000 questions, a million doubts. But she had never dared to ask. Not yet. "I have a secret," Khalid continued, "and after tonight, you will have to decide whether you still want to be my wife." Sana's breath caught in her throat. What was he saying? Was he about to confess something terrible? Had she married a man far more dangerous than she had imagined? "Sana," Khalid said slowly, his voice impossibly steady, "I am not blind." The world around her seemed to stop. "What?" she breathed, her mind struggling to comprehend his words. "I can see," he said simply. "I always have." Sana took a step back, her body trembling. Was this some kind of cruel joke? Or had she just walked into the biggest deception of her life? "But everyone said," she stammered, "the world believes that I am blind," Khalid finished for her. "Yes, because that is the story I have allowed them to believe." Sana shook her head, her mind racing. "But why? Why would you lie about something like that?" Khalid exhaled deeply, his fingers tapping against the armrest of his chair. "Because power is not just about wealth, Sana. It's about control, and people are easier to read when they think you can't see them." Her stomach twisted at his words. This man, her husband, had spent his life deceiving everyone around him, and now she was part of his web of secrets. Was this a test? A game? Or was there something even darker beneath the surface? "You think this is a joke?" Sana whispered, stepping back. "You lied to me, to your family, to the entire world." Khalid's lips curled into a slight smile. "I did what I had to," he said, "and now you have a choice." "A choice?" "Yes." He finally stood, walking toward her with slow, deliberate steps. "You can walk away now. I won't stop you. But if you stay, you must accept that this marriage is not what you thought it was. You must accept that you are now part of something much bigger." Sana's mind raced. Every instinct in her screamed at her to run, to leave, to escape this man and his dangerous secrets. But then, a thought crept into her mind, a thought more terrifying than the deception itself. What if she had secrets too? Khalid's confession had shaken her, but deep down, Sana knew she was not as innocent as she appeared. She had married him for a reason, one she had never spoken aloud. And now, as she stood before a man who had just shattered every truth she thought she knew, she realized something terrifying. She wasn't the only one in this marriage who had been keeping secrets. "So?" Khalid's voice broke the silence. "What will it be, Sana? Will you run?" She looked at him, her heart still racing, and for the first time that night, a slow smile played on her lips. "No," she said quietly. "I think I'll stay." Khalid raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Good." Neither of them spoke after that, but in that moment, something shifted. This was no ordinary marriage. This was a union of secrets, a battle of minds, and the real game had only just begun. The night stretched on, the air between them thick with unspoken words. Outside, the world continued as if nothing had changed, but inside that suite, everything was different now. Sana was no longer just a wife. She was part of a mystery she had yet to understand. And Khalid, he was no longer just her husband. He was something far more dangerous. But the question remained, who would outplay whom? Khalid had revealed his secret, but Sana's mind was still spinning. He had deceived the world, built an empire on a lie, and somehow she was now a part of it. But what he didn't know was that she had her own secrets too. Sana wasn't just a simple girl from a modest background. She hadn't stumbled into this marriage by chance. From the very beginning, she had a purpose, a reason for saying yes to a man she barely knew. But now, standing face to face with him, she realized she had underestimated him. Khalid was dangerous, clever, ruthless, and if she wasn't careful, he would figure out the truth before she was ready. She took a slow breath, calming herself. She couldn't let him see her panic. She needed time. Time to understand why he had faked his blindness. Time to uncover what he was hiding beneath his confident exterior. And most importantly, time to execute her own plan. "You seem thoughtful," Khalid observed, watching her closely. Sana forced a small smile. "It's a lot to take in." Khalid smirked as if he knew she was holding something back. "Yes, it is." And in that moment, she knew. This marriage was not going to be about love or trust. It was a game of survival, and only one of them would win. Sana knew she had to be careful. Khalid wasn't just any man. He was powerful, cunning, and always a step ahead. But she couldn't let fear control her. If she wanted answers, she had to play smart. Over the next few days, she started observing him more closely. He moved through his world with absolute confidence, his supposed blindness never once slowing him down. He could read people's intentions without looking at them. He could sense emotions without needing to see. And yet, despite his intelligence, she noticed something strange. There were moments when he hesitated just for a second, when his expression hardened as if he was keeping something buried deep inside. It wasn't just a game of deception. It was something deeper, something personal. And that's when it hit her. Khalid wasn't just pretending to be blind for power. He was hiding from something or someone. Sana wasn't the type to sit back and wait for answers to come to her. If Khalid had secrets, she was going to find them. And that's exactly what she did. Late one night, while Khalid was out on business, she slipped into his private study. The room was filled with expensive books, leather-bound journals, and ancient scrolls. But what caught her attention was a locked drawer in his desk. Her fingers trembled as she picked the lock, the small click echoing in the silence. Inside, she found a stack of documents and a photograph. It was an old picture of a woman. Her features were delicate, her eyes hauntingly familiar. But it wasn't just the woman that sent chills down Sana's spine. It was the name written on the back of the photo. Layla. Khalid had never mentioned another woman. He had never spoken of past loves. But the way he had hidden this photograph, it meant something. And suddenly, Sana realized that she wasn't the only one in this marriage with a plan. Khalid had married her for a reason, and she needed to find out why, before it was too late. Sana waited until Khalid returned that night. She didn't run. She didn't hide. She sat in his study, the photograph in her hands, and when he entered, she met his gaze without fear. "Who is Layla?" she asked calmly. Khalid stopped in his tracks. For the first time since she had met him, she saw something flicker in his expression. Something raw. Something dangerous. "Where did you find that?" he asked, his voice low, controlled. "It was in your drawer," she said, refusing to back down. "Why are you hiding her?" Khalid exhaled slowly, his jaw tightening. "You shouldn't have gone through my things." "And you shouldn't have lied about being blind," she countered. "We're even." For a long moment, he didn't say anything. Then he walked towards her, his presence as commanding as ever. When he finally spoke, his words sent a chill down her spine. "Layla was my wife." Sana's breath caught. "Wife?" "She's dead," Khalid continued, "and someone killed her." Sana's fingers tightened around the photograph. She hadn't expected this. She had thought Khalid was playing a game of power, of deception. But this was something else entirely. "Who?" she whispered. "Who killed her?" Khalid's eyes darkened. "That's what I've been trying to find out." Sana had walked into this marriage believing she was in control, that she had her own plan. But now she realized she was tangled in something much bigger, much darker than she had imagined. Khalid wasn't just a deceiver. He was a man haunted by his past, a man seeking revenge. And now, she was part of his story. "Tell me the truth, Sana," Khalid said, stepping closer. "Why did you agree to marry me?" Sana's heart pounded. Did he suspect her? Did he know the real reason she was here? She took a slow breath and met his gaze, knowing that whatever she said next would determine everything. Because I wanted to know the truth, she said simply. Khalid studied her for a long moment. Then to her surprise, he smirked. Then we have something in common. The air between them was charged, the tension undeniable. They were no longer just husband and wife. They were two players in a dangerous game, one that neither could afford to lose. You want answers? Khalid said, his voice calm yet laced with something dark. Then stay. But know this, Sana. He stepped even closer, his presence overpowering. If you betray me, I will know. Sana didn't flinch. Instead, she smiled, because now she knew something too. And if you lied to me again, Khalid, she said softly, I will know. Silence. A moment of understanding. A silent agreement between two people bound not by love, but by secrets and survival. The wedding night was over. The truth had begun to surface, but the real battle was just beginning. Khalid and Sana both had secrets. Both had reasons for playing this game. But in the end, only one could win. Who would outsmart whom? Who would uncover the final truth first? And most importantly, what would happen when they finally discovered the real reason their fates were intertwined? One thing was certain. This marriage was never about love. It was a game, and neither of them planned to lose.